Today, we're going to talk about something that's all around us, but you probably never think about it. It's kind of like an invisible blueprint that dictates the safety of our homes, the layout of our streets, the whole structure of our cities. We're diving into the Bangladesh National Building Code, 2020.
Have you ever really stopped to think about what keeps our buildings standing? Or what makes sure our cities actually, work? It's not just luck, that's for sure. It all comes down to a deliberate plan laid out in one single, incredibly powerful document.
That's right, a building code. And I know, a building code might sound a little dry, but trust me, this thing is packed with thousands of rules that literally save lives, create more inclusive communities, and really shape the future of the entire nation. Let's see how.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, what this code even is. Then we'll get into how it keeps us safe. After that, how it's designed for everyone. We'll also look at how it shapes whole cities. And finally, how this all gets put into practice.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly is this document we're talking about?
Officially, the BNBC 2020 is the master rulebook. It governs, well, pretty much everything to do with buildings. We're talking about the materials used, the design, the construction process, how a building can be used, the whole shebang.
But to put it a lot more simply, just think of it like this. It's basically the instruction manual for building a nation. Seriously. It's the blueprint that makes sure everything is safe, that it works properly, and that it's resilient enough to handle whatever comes its way.
And what do you think is the #1 top-of-the-list priority in that manual? Safety. It's all about safety. So let's see exactly how the code makes that a reality.
Just look at the difference here. Without a code, you've got chaos, unregulated buildings, a super high risk of fire, and structures that are incredibly vulnerable to disasters. But with the BNBC 2020, you get buildings engineered for safety, required fire protection, and structures built to be resilient. It's a night and day difference, really.
And here's a perfect real-world example. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a strict rule. The code says that fire pumps have to have their own dedicated water reserve. Now, why does that matter? Well, it means that even if the city's main water supply gets cut off in an emergency, there's still water right there to fight a fire. That is a life-saving detail.
And what's really smart is that the code isn't just a rigid, one-size-fits-all document. It adapts. Take a look at this chart. It shows how strong buildings need to be to resist wind. In a cyclone-prone coastal area like Cox's Bazar, the requirement is way higher than for buildings in more inland areas like Dhaka or Dinajpur. It's tailored to the actual local risks.
And the level of detail is just incredible. The code gets down to the exact minimum distance a building has to be from an overhead power line, both vertically and horizontally. This is super specific stuff designed to prevent fires and electrocutions. It's like the code is thinking about all the dangers, so we don't have to.
Okay, so safety isn't just about surviving disasters. It's also about making sure every single person can move through our world easily and with dignity. And this is where the code shifts from just structural safety to social inclusivity.
The BNBC is really clear about this. It specifically designs for people with disabilities, including folks in wheelchairs, people who have other mobility challenges, and those with visual or hearing impairments. The whole goal is to make our public spaces truly public, for everyone.
And again, this isn't just some vague, nice idea. It's a hard rule. For example, get this. In any stadium or movie theater, for every 150 seats, there has to be one dedicated wheelchair space. That simple rule makes a huge difference, making sure everyone can be a part of public and cultural life.
Just look at the depth of detail here. The code actually grades flooring materials on how slippery they are. It classifies surfaces from very good, like carpet, to poor to fair, like wet marble. A rule like this can prevent countless falls and injuries, especially for the elderly and people with mobility issues. It's safety at the most fundamental level.
Okay, so the code regulates individual buildings. We get that. But its influence is much, much bigger. It actually shapes the layout and function of our entire cities.
Check this out. The BNBC defines a clear system for roads. This diagram shows what it calls a primary road. Think of it like a city's main artery. And the code doesn't just say make it wide. It mandates a minimum width of 18 meters and designates specific lanes for cars, buses, and even wide walkways for people. This is how you design a city that actually flows.
And it's not just about roads. The code also plans for our well-being by requiring a hierarchy of green spaces. It needs small, local parks for a neighborhood, larger ward parks for a whole community, and massive regional parks for the entire city.
And here's the key takeaway from that. By mandating this, the code redefines green space. It's no longer just the empty leftover land nobody wanted. It becomes a necessary, planned part of the city, just as critical as any road or building.
So, we have this amazing blueprint. But a blueprint is useless if it just sits on a shelf, right? How does the BNBC 2020 actually go from being words on paper to becoming a reality?
Well, it takes a whole chain of people, and each one has a legal responsibility. It starts with the applicant and the owner who's funding the project. Then you have the engineers and architects who create the design. But the final, most crucial step is the building official. That's the government authority who has the power to enforce the code and make sure it's followed.
And you better believe this code has serious teeth. This direct quote makes it crystal clear. You can't escape your responsibility. Even if you get fined or convicted for a violation, you are still legally obligated to go back and fix the problem to meet the code's requirements. That duty remains.
So, the code gives us the blueprint for a safer, more accessible, and better planned Bangladesh. It's a remarkable document, but it leaves us with one final crucial question. The code provides the plan, but who is ultimately responsible for demanding it, following it, and actually building that better future? Well, the answer to that is everyone.